Okay, I think we have a quorum now.
I
Um,
think we do.
Go ahead and call the meeting to order, and hopefully LPA will join us shortly. Um, Let me start by reading the usual announcement. Pursuant to Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting will be conducted via remote means. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so in the following manner. Join the Zoom meeting at the URL listed on the agenda. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so for reasons of economic hardship and despite best efforts, we will post on the Westborough Public Library's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. And as I believe you all know, this meeting is being recorded. Okay, let's start with the public forum. I am looking at the attendee list and I'm not seeing any members of the public. Am I missing anyone?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, then let's go on to the discussion of pricing proposals for the repair project. We have a slightly modified proposal from Vertex. They got us one last week, and we have the proposal from LPA. Maureen, would you like to say anything about this? Or you want to pass it over to the representatives from those two organizations, or?
I'm gonna pass it right over.
Okay. John, I think you've already told us about it, the proposal last week, but there's some modifications. Can you tell us about the modifications?
Yeah, so basically what I did, guys, is I in response to, as I said before, Bill's really good comments, we kind of just gave you the pricing, similar format that we did the first time, but the first time we were responding to an RFQ. So we added a cover letter to the packet that basically just said, kind of a good kind of overall look at what's an OPM do during schematic design, and I won't read through all the bullets, but it's, basically work with the designer, and making sure that the scope, budget, and schedule of what this project becomes, is what you guys want. It's reviewing any cost estimates that come up, participating in value engineering, participate in regular design coordination meetings. So as kind of as the process is moving along, as Eric and team kind of go through and just, start to define the project, we participate in that. It's not just, he starts and then 8 months later gives us, hey, what the project is, we're there throughout. This is a really important one for this phase, assisting in the implementation of any additional testing, environmental evaluations, hazardous materials, destructive testing. It's going to be a lot more of those things involved in a renovation project. Where before you were just going to, again, take the back 3/4 of the building off, start over. Now, when we talk about things like, an augmented structural scope, we're going to want to help coordinate and make sure as those holes are being, ripped in the plaster or the drywall and patched after, being there and kind of coordinating that stuff with you throughout the process as to, ensure that we minimize the impact on the the library hours and staff and customers. Then monitoring the design status along the way. So making sure that, if we come up with a schedule of, deliverables and whatnot by fall town meeting, that those things, are adhered to. Meetings as necessary. Again, and then when we have the final information from Eric, obviously developing a pretty comprehensive total project budget like we saw, for the other project. And that really gets its start at schematic design, so people can say, okay, what's the order of magnitude we're talking about? And then attend any meetings and public information sessions, that sort of stuff that you guys, need along the way. So basically we're saying we'll do it for the, not to exceed pretty much the same fee as we did for the first project, acknowledging that, if there are places where we can save and, economize, we certainly will. And that's the benefit of having doing it kind of on time and materials. If we don't spend it, you don't pay for it. How's that?
Thank you. Let's ask LPA for their presentation, and then we can address both of them at once. So Eric, I think that puts the ball in your court.
Here we go. I expect you're all having a little bit of sticker shock here, so I'll try and address that. First of all, this is, as John described, this is a brand new project. It's even though we've done existing conditions assessments, it's significantly different in terms of going in and determining the scope of work that's needs to be done, and then getting to the level of detail that you can put good numbers on these. Renovation projects are significantly more difficult than new construction or additions. We have
Right.
carried an enhanced level, if you will, of design and deliverables in terms of our consulting engineers. We've carried some specialty consultants in the fields of most like forensic investigative consultants to look at the slate roof, the copper flashings, the brick and stone masonry, the wood windows. This is something that whether you do that now or you do it later, it's something that you'll need to do one way or the other. So we're proposing that it be done now. We've also asked our consultants to, rather than just provide written basis of design narratives, we've asked them to put together drawings, comprehensive drawings that actually show the level of work, so it can be more accurately estimated. The second point I would make, and it's kind of hard for me to say this, but we have lost a great deal of money on the first two projects that we've done, and you've never heard us complain about that. I'm not complaining about that now, but I'm telling you that we go into a project like that with the assumption that it may be a loss leader, it may not happen, but we knew we were working with the limited funds that the trustees have, and we wanted to work with you to the effect to the extent that we could, and we did that knowing that we would lose money on that, I think having been through that process, we know what the number of meetings will be, and the process to get this through approved through the community and get that, establish that level of work and describe it accurately. And we know it's just a higher cost than what you saw for the first contract and the follow-up reboot, if you will. So I'd be happy to take questions if you have specific questions. I know that you asked about having an alternative cost if we did not go to the enhanced level of work, and I didn't include it in the proposal, but I have a figure. It's in the vicinity of $43,000 difference, which in my, I strongly recommend that you do the enhanced, having been through this once with the written narratives. I think that may work somewhat for the new construction or an addition, but I think that's a very difficult narrative to write and to accurately describe the level of work for a renovation repair option. So I don't feel like that's really a good option to go, but you asked how much it was, and it's about a little under $44,000.
So that would bring the estimate from 248, I believe, down to about 244, 204, 205, something like that.
Correct. That's right. A little over 200.
Thank you. Okay, so let's open the floor up for questions. Bill, I see your hand up. Questions, comments, thoughts, everything.
Yeah, I think somewhere, Eric, I'd like to have you talk about the exclusions, not in just bullet form, if you will, just so we understand what the exclusions were. But I think Eric's statement about lost leader on when you're going for a full project is kind of how the way I've seen projects go, expecting that the whole thing would come around. You make up as you go through, but you want to get on the table and get there. So I think that's fits in normal construction work. I wouldn't want the team to take exception to his comments about that. I think the scope is well written. As he said and Ed asked about, I think the enhanced drawings will benefit us in the long run because we'll get better estimates and get explainable contingencies in the line items. He said he'd give us estimates at the net level, if you will, of whatever the CSA codes or AI codes are. But I think it's overall well done. But like I say, if he could explain a little bit about the exclusions, so we understand that part of it. Or...
Sure, I can speak to those, Bill. The first one is the MBLs. We're looking at this as a project that will be funded strictly by the town, and that you won't be looking to go to MBLC for another grant round, or that we would be preparing any sort of submissions, to MBLC. We have excluded review and selection of CM candidates and their non-price proposals. So should you decide to go Chapter 149A CM at risk, which I think still makes a lot of sense, that our for this phase of construction, or design, that the SD phase, we would not be involved in that process. That would happen sometime after at the design development as we get into more detail. We've excluded hazmat and environmental sampling testing. So hazardous material, that's somebody that's having somebody. I think you've had a report done already, but they didn't do actual sampling. So typically they come in, they do a little bit of destructive testing. They'll take down pieces of ceiling or pipe insulation or mastic underneath the floor and that sort of thing. They'll test it and come up with a report that will define what is ACM, asbestos containing material, and what's not. Caulking, that's always another one. So that is something that would need to be done at some point. Environmental sampling testing, that would be soils testing. So that would be testing the soils for arsenic or lead or heavy metals, anything like that, knowing that there may have been use of this site or use of a nearby site or an industrial use. There potentially could be some soils that are affected. With a renovation project, I don't expect that would be a major issue, but there would be some site utilities. We've not included site or topographic utility surveys. We do have I think based on the information we have, we could get through the schematic design process as is, and I think probably just go back out and possibly update the topo utility survey at the beginning of design development. We've also excluded anything related to site design having to do with the church property in terms of either drainage or improving their parking lot. with new pavement or gravel base or the like. Lead certification, I think you've already said that you have not, you don't plan to be lead certified on the project. There are costs associated with that. There's application fees. There's also a certain level of energy modeling that needs to be done for that. So we did not include that. And lastly, the subsurface test explorations, test pits and borings. Normally you would do those with new construction. And again, for this project, probably not. You might do a little bit of probing in the area of the new utilities, but it's unlikely you do a significant subsurface exploration program at this point.
Okay. Bill?
No, I think, thank you for explaining. I guess I would ask that so that we get the best estimate that we can as you go through the design and you decide where certain walls need to be evaluated and you can see something maybe of a hazardous nature, that we will see some kind of a contingency in the estimate so that we're not surprised later on.
Well, it may be that you want to go ahead and do the hazmat survey. That could be something that we do have pricing on that we've asked consultants for, so we could, it's not a bad idea to do that at this point, but
Maybe I should have been asking John the question. I see his hand up. I don't mean to.
No, it's a great question. It's kind of that chicken or the egg thing, right? Obviously, if you're going to go to town meeting to get some money to get started because people didn't want to do the other project, but you're hesitant to kind of throw
Some people.
too much money behind it because, well, wait a minute, what's all these costs? What are we, but to Eric's point, do we need the hazmat results specifically to give you a good schematic design ballpark?
Okay.
No, not necessarily. Is it better if you have it? Yeah, sure. It certainly is. But that's kind of a, hazmat's always kind of a carve out. So you can either address it when we do a schematic and get to kind of like, all right, what's this project going to be? And we put an allowance around it. And then we ask for money to do that true hazmat survey in the second round. That's fine. We can do it then. We can do it then too. Bottom line is, if you have a report, the library, I'm sure, has a HERA reports, has an idea of what is in there as far as hazmat. You can have an idea. You know what I mean? We can talk about what those abatement costs would be. You'll know more if you do more testing. So again, remember, we're going for a schematic number here. We're going for an order of magnitude to confirm to the town what that repair project would be and go from there. So I could go either way on this one. I think the exclusions, frankly, just quickly, I think are right in what I would expect to see. I don't think you need surveys right now. I think with the church and the site, until we define what the repair project is, we might not even touch the site. We still may need to take some space, but that's a different discussion, to effectively do a project and have laydown. And then subsurface, I mean, again, until we know what we're going to do, I don't know if there's any reason to dig holes, because we're not talking about changing the footprint of the library as it stands right now, at least the way I would understand a renovation. You may change it inside, but outside. So I think the stuff that's excluded is fine. And then CM at risk, just quickly, I do agree with Eric. I think that's something that we should still consider, especially given how complicated this could be, a complicated reno. But you don't need to make that decision right now at all. That's definitely a part two decision.
And John, when you say in the future, we may need to take space for laydown, by take space, you mean borrow space.
Yeah, yes.
I just
Yeah, we are
wanted to
not
make sure that that's
we
clear.
are, yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's a great point, Marie. No, I mean, you need a place to lay down materials, right? And absent, that's the only place that has unused asphalt, right?
Right.
If now we're not, is it possible to put it on the other side of the building now where we're not taking the building down and maybe Jersey barrier off the sidewalk or something on the, we'll call it the police side? Yeah, I mean, there's definitely other options now that the scope of this project is changing. You're not digging a 12-foot hole in the ground. You certainly have some more options. And again, that's part of the stuff that you study, in these next 6 or 7 months.
I'm satisfied with these responses, John. We have from both John and Eric, we have the recording that we could back up and say, okay, they included this, excluded this, should the public ask for it. This is good. Thank you.
Bob?
I just want to ask again about the CM at risk piece. So I know CM at risk is a little bit more complicated to procure than just basic design bid build under Chapter 149. So are you saying that if we did decide to go CM at risk, and I'm a big fan of that, that the cost of you administrating the RFP, the RFQ portion of the CM at risk is not included in this cost? We'd have to add that on. Your time for that.
Are you asking me, Bob, or John?
Yeah, because you had said it's CM.
Okay.
You said CM at risk is part of the exclusion. So I'm assuming the cost to administer CM at risk, Chapter 149A, would not be included in this.
So only to the extent that we would be involved at the schematic design phase, and that might entail, reviewing requests for proposals that John might put together. It might involve, attending the interviews, and what we did at the, for the addition renovation project. But I would think that once we get to design, that would be the extent of it. So it's not saying that we're not going to, be involved down the line. If this moves ahead and it's funded and we get through the schematic design and the design development through CDs is funded, we would include working with a CM at that point, and that we would
at the DD side, the DD phase.
Yeah, but Bob, it's too soon to, typically when you do the application, as you know, there's lots of information about the project that's going to be built. And frankly, until we get through SD, we don't know, until we get through this process, we don't know what the project's going to be, right? So I wouldn't recommend submitting an application to the Inspector General until, the next town meeting. Like we do this and we go to that next ask for design dollars. In that ask, we would include money for pre-construction for a CM to get them on board, maybe at the end of design development, and have them, walk with us to a bid/GMP. So I have no problem with this, because I think getting one on board now, it's way too soon.
I wasn't pushing to get one on board now.
Oh yeah, no, understood. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no scope to do it right now.
Right. Okay. And just one other quick question on that. I know that in my experiences when we wrote the law in 2004, it was based on, new construction for the most part. As far as renos goes, how often do they use this CM at risk for renovation and base repairs on a building versus brand new? Because I know most savvy communities would use CM at risk on new construction, but and I'm trying to think, how many projects in your experiences have gone CM at risk on basic repair? And I'm not saying not do it. I'm a big fan of it. I'm just curious as to how many you've seen CM at risk on going 149A on something like the project we're going to be doing. Not full new building, just kind of a base repair.
I will say, we asked the MBLC how many of their the projects they'd seen had gone CM at risk, and if I recall correctly, it was 2 out of it, dozens of new libraries and renovations, which surprised me because seeing at risk made so much sense to me. But Maureen, am I remembering that number right? Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, you're right.
Oh,
So,
okay.
okay.
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it then.
I want to, so, Lee, I'm jumping in ahead of you for a sec. Two things. So we're envisioning bringing on, if we go CM at risk, we're envisioning bringing that person on in the design development phase, not in schematic design. Okay.
Correct.
The other one,
I don't think there's a value there, Ed. It's too early.
Okay.
So what I would say is if we got a yes at the next town meeting, you know, we could have the application ready to go because I'd be waiting to fill in the, you know, what's it worth? What's it worth and what's the rough time frame? And I think only after Eric and team kind of get through the process and we kind of lay out what that next schedule is, because you got to, in fairness, you got to give that CM kind of a rough idea of of what it is and when, because they are actually they're bidding to a degree. So, you know, even if it really is just, you know, pre-con to start. Yeah, so I think, you know, get to, you know, do this, get this funded, get a study done, go to the next ask, and buried in that next ask would be the dollars. I don't mean buried, hidden, I mean, you know, kind of laid out, you know, your architect, your OPM for the next to get you to bidding, as well as your CM, if that's the way we're going to go, you know, to have that fee in there as well.
Just a off the wall thought. You mentioned the Inspector General. Do we need to do anything to quote close out our previous CM at risk contract? Okay,
No.
Cool. Lee, back to you, or over to you, I guess.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, I don't know if other people are feeling the same way because we're just starting to get into understanding the whole scope of doing it as a renovation instead of a new project. But it's a bit overwhelming when you think about all of the aspects of doing it as a renovation and trying to anticipate ahead of time what those costs are going to be without a lot of information about how bad things are, because we have to get that yet. But it really exemplifies to me how poorly our particular town government form, the town meeting, how poorly it facilitates really the robust discussion that you need to have. I mean, when people were complaining and saying, we don't want the new building, just do the renovation. It won't cost that much. Oh, you're saying 18 million. Yeah, well, yeah. You're probably lying to us or not. You're overinflating because the company wants to do that. I mean, we were so ill-served by that form of discussion. And now we have to go ahead and make sure that we do it in a way that people believe, don't just systematically throw off the table and say, well, we don't even want a renovation, because again, now you're bringing out these huge costs. We didn't expect that. I think we have a huge rocky road ahead of us, even just for this. And I'm sitting here feeling perplexed, a little overwhelmed, quite worried. I know we have the best people, John and, Eric and everything working on this, and we're going to have a good presentation. But I am just feeling so uneasy about it. I don't know how other people are. I'm in here for the long haul on the committee with everybody. We all believe that we have to do the right thing. But boy, we have so much work to do. I'm feeling it a little daunting. I don't know how that's just like an emotional response. It has nothing to do with all the facts that you're putting out there. But I think we all have to live with how much time we're putting into this. And like you saying, you've lost money, in this initial phase. And then John saying, well, that's my understanding, or maybe Bill brought it up, that's sort of part of doing the business. But that's a difficult thing for people that were working with consultants that we're working with. I mean, there's just, I don't know, keeping a grip on everything is going to be a lot of work. That's all. I agree with what you're saying so far, but that's where I am.
Pete?
Yeah, I raised my hand basically to echo that sentiment. I think the numbers are kind of not totally unexpected, but I'm sitting here trying to think about how someone would stand at town meeting floor and make the pitch for this. 300 and whatever thousand, 50,000, 40,000, whatever it adds up. And sell it, basically. How do you convince people that this is good money well spent? And one question going through my mind, and I'm assuming that in the LPA quote, it included all of 1, 2, and 3 design requirements, and was inclusive of all of that. And
Priorities 1 through 3.
yeah, priorities, whatever the labels were. And it's like, well, I wouldn't expose that at town meeting floor, but maybe it needs to be exposed. And then the question is, well, what if we only do the required? And, do you end up going in with 3 numbers, the required, the recommended, and the entirety, or, how do you go about explaining it? So in regard to Lee's comments, I was feeling that overwhelmed of how do you explain this in the town meeting form of government we have.
Eric, do you want to respond?
Yes, thank you, Ed. I just wanted to clarify something. When I said we had lost money previously, this fee does not represent an attempt by Lamero Pagano to try and recoup that money. That's not what this is. This is what we believe is the right price for the work. We looked at it 3 different ways, and we basically are right in the middle of that. I agree with Lee that it is going to be a very difficult sell to the town, and that's one of the reasons we've got a lot of time built into this for those meetings, for those public presentations, to explain and we may have, to Pete's point about what if you don't do all of these line items. Well, we still have to study them. We still have to go through the process and see what they're going to cost. We still need, we may end up having to describe some of these as alternates, maybe deduct alternates or add alternates so that you can defer the decision on whether something is in the scope until down the road. So yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a tough sell to the town. I think it's going to take a lot of persuasiveness to get this passed.
Well,
Yeah, I sympathize also with Lee, but I guess Mary and I met with a couple of people that spoke at town meeting and came to some of our meetings. And what we found is they were, I'll use the word ignorant, but more in the sense of they didn't understand what it takes and to get a project through. And I use the example of you have to get, at the end of the project, everything has to be approved by the building committee, but you got to start at then go to the front. You got to do all the things that we've already done. So they didn't realize that we had done all those things. So I think both instructional meetings ahead of the town meeting is important to us, but also an article or 2 or something on Westborough TV that explains what the process is to get through a project that most of us have seen happen here in town that the average person doesn't know. So that coupled with the type of thing that Maureen did, but there's 2 types of education that I think that are needed. And I think that we can pursue those and let's make a list of what we think needs to be done. Not everybody came to Maureen's invitation, but I think if we put it out there and get articles in the paper and something on TV and have our own, like we record all the meetings, that we can get back to the people and advise them to study those so that they fully understand it. Will they all understand it? No. But I think an approach of trying to educate them ahead of town meeting is well worthwhile.
all right.
I just want to chime in and say, when I saw the proposals, I did not have sticker shock. This was like in the ballpark of what I was expecting in my head based on what we had already spent to get to the same level of design on the previous project. This is a slight increase over what we spent the last time around, but years have gone by and costs have gone up. And I don't think the increase over the last project is anything that's incredibly significant or it's like a showstopper at all. I think what we're getting for the amount of money that we're spending is of tremendous value. And I'm curious to hear what Walter has to say about it, and Sean also. And I want to slightly disagree. Yes, I think it's going to be a hard sell because anything with a price tag attached to it lately is a hard sell. But we've prepared the voters to expect us to come back with a request for repair work, and they'll be expecting that. So I don't think it's catastrophic, and I'm very optimistic that it's going to be approved when we bring it forward. So maybe that's me with my rose-colored glasses on again, as I was the last time around, but that's just what I'm thinking. So there you go.
Walter?
Let's see, I'm not muted. Okay, good. So just to unwrap ourselves around from the axle, yeah, it's a little overwhelming, and I think there's a way to go before we have materials that would be presentable. I mean, we have to take the list of the repair items that we have and boil them down to bullet points or something in a way that you can kind of see them, and they can be sorted into, we want to explore this set because we want to see how much would it cost to do this work, and we want to explore this set because they're essential items, and etc. And my general impression is, since we're splitting this into 3 tranches of money, was that since the detail, my understanding is the detail design is far more work than what we're talking about doing here, that the expectation has to be set that this is what it costs. Yeah, do we have an uphill battle? Yeah, probably. There, as you said, I think there's a lot of kickback on a lot of things these days, but I don't think we should spend our time fretting about that. We should go forward and make this a little more organized and present it. I think it has to be presented by people outside of the architect and the OPM at town meeting mostly, but because I think you want our committee to have digested it enough to be able to speak to it properly.
Bill?
Yeah, these are all good comments. If you think this is sticker shock, imagine if we had somebody that didn't know this project like these 2 entities do. It could be significantly higher, or it could be a change order at the end because they didn't understand the project like these 2 entities do.
Okay. I have a couple of thoughts of my own. One is I did have some sticker shock initially. That's been somewhat alleviated by this discussion, and I agree that given the doubts everyone's expressed about our being able to get the whole project through town meeting, we certainly can't ask LPA to treat this as a loss leader. They need to think about this particular schematic design phase as a standalone proposition that may or may not go forward. So I can't argue with that. I was concerned about the hazmats just because that's a kind of surprise that can be a really bad surprise. So Eric, let me ask if you mentioned you had a price for a hazmat analysis. Is that something you can give us now, or you're on mute?
I don't have it at my fingertips, Ed, but I could get that for you.
If you could let us know, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. That's all I had, Sean.
Hey, thank you, Ed. Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement. I think that this analysis is necessary. It needs to be done. I think we're gonna have to talk through the arguments for doing it. I think a couple of things we ought to prepare are, is there anything of the work that's previously been done? What of it are we able to reuse as part of this assessment? Or was that completely throwaway? And we can talk to that at town meeting or, as you come before committees. But, if we're going to get a good number, we have to go into this amount of detail with the 50-year-old portion of the building to really be able to, know what's ahead of us and know what is actually on the 1 and 2 list. So thank you, gentlemen.
Lee?
Yeah, I just wondered, was there anything explored for the Forbes building that would help us about hazmat in that neighborhood? We know that downtown had a lot of sites where we had industrial things going on. VMAR VARC was a wonderful example, horrible contamination that's several blocks away. I don't think we have had industrial things where the churches are and the library is, but I just thought we should check with the Forbes committee. Did they get anything about hazardous stuff in that neighborhood that might help us? And then I had a question for later. We were going to, at this meeting, I think, have the content or the agenda, however you want to describe it, that we would have at each of the upcoming town meetings. So just wanted to make sure by the time we finish our meeting today that we either have that or we know when we're going to get it. That's all. Thank you. Thanks.
Al, do you know about contamination from Forbes?
Right. The only thing that I really can remember is in the front steps, there was some kind of ash and stuff that was buried. Something had been burned and they buried it and it was right there. And we were having a problem in the front left corner of the building with the ground in there. The cement was sinking and it was just I think the stuff was composting underneath there. So that was a major problem. And then again, we had the issue with the gymnasium. You didn't know what was under those stairs there. And that was a major problem that we weren't expecting also.
As far as I know, this parcel was residential before it was the library. So
Good.
I wouldn't expect there to be much under there, but I guess you never know from that era what could be under there. But that's something I'm sure we'll explore at a later point in the process.
Walter?
Yeah, well, so we're not excavating anymore. We're just fixing stuff in the building. So the hazardous materials are asbestos or something else you find when you dig behind a wall and not something in the soil, in my opinion.
True.
And so I would try to avoid a lot of panic over that because that makes it open-ended and people don't like funding open-ended things.
Good point.
My question is related to the old part of the building. We must have studied that in order to have proposed the renovation part of the old building. And yes, we're completely tearing down the new part of the building. But I had hoped there would be more leverage on what was understood for the schematic design in order to be able to renovate the old part of the building that, that third or half or whatever that part of the building is, was already fairly well understood.
My understanding, and Maureen, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that we did have a study, but they didn't take physical samples. They didn't dig into the walls and so on. And to be sure, you need to dig into the walls. Maureen, can we, and by we, I mean you, can you dig out that study? I think there's a roof study and there may have been other, things that were done in the first thing and get them out so we can consider them.
I can do that.
We don't need them right now, but before we meet again for sure. Any other comments?
So are we, the end goal here is to get to a number that we can put on a warrant in what we're doing. So does this mean we have numbers, and do we have to add anything else besides these two quotes to that?
I was going to actually ask exactly the same question. For the construction people around here, if we just, is adding up your two quotes going to be enough, or are we going to need to pull another third party in to do something? John, you
just
said your hand up.
I have a quick question for Eric. Eric, I know we talked about it a while ago. Does your proposal contemplate the person that makes the holes?
Yes, yeah, we've included getting somebody out there on a lift or ladders or what staging, whatever needs to be done to access the slate roof and copper flashings. And they'll have to, typically they'll take off a slate, they can do that without actually damaging, adjoining slates. And, they'll get a sense of what the substrates like and what the fasteners are like and the condition of the slate itself. They'll be able to make an assessment, but that includes getting somebody up there, and there wouldn't be an additional cost for lift or anything like that.
Okay, so Ed, to your question, I mean, absent a third number for the hazmat that Eric has it somewhere. It really is as simple as A plus B. A plus, and that gets us where we need to be.
Okay, so I added up those two numbers a while back. It's 99,459 for Vertex, 248,500 for LPA, and that adds up to 347,959. Somebody may want to check my math on that. You all have the proposals. I've been known to make stupid math errors in the past. So I think, so what we want to do is decide whether to request that amount at the March town meeting, I believe. Anybody disagree? Is that our goal today? Okay,
I
so,
would say yes.
okay. So let's have a motion then. I guess I'm the chair and I shouldn't do it. Somebody want to move?
I'll make a motion to submit a town meeting warrant article to fund, I don't know whether raise and appropriate is the correct term, but
That's
fund
good.
the 347,000 and change, whatever your number was,
Mhm.
for the purposes of doing schematic designs for a library renovation project.
Okay, the number is 347,959.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Emery second. Okay.
Okay, you have a second. So
Ed,
any, go ahead.
I would just like to add to that, as scoped out in both of these documents, so that the public is clear with it, whether, Maureen, you can put that in there, but you can always add verbiage that as scoped out.
Well, we're not writing the warrant article here. We're just
No, but-
suggesting that
No,
we do it.
Yeah,
Right.
you
But
do
our
to get it right in
approval-
it definitely needs to be right in the warrant. So,
Our approval, Walter, should be based on the scope as well as the dollars, that's all.
Good idea.
any other comments or debate about those motions before we go to a vote?
Yeah, I think the correct word was appropriate, not raise and appropriate. Because the funding source will be decided whether it's free cash or it's from a loan or whatever by someone else. Yeah. So I think you were right on. Just not the raise and part.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the motion is,
so a motion as amended, so I'll take
Okay.
both of those amendments.
okay, and do you have a second for the amendment?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, so let's go around the horn for votes. Maureen,
Amy, yes.
Bob,
Petroselli, yes.
Bill,
Lenine, yes.
Lee,
Emery, yes.
Pete,
Dunbeck, yes.
Walter,
Leslie, yes.
Al,
Gordon, yes.
Sean,
EO, yes.
Ed Baldwin, yes. So that's a unanimous yes. Okay. So Maureen, will you, do we need to ask the trustees to approve that? And do we have time? I think it needs to go on the warrant before the trustees will meet again.
I think we should ask them if they want to approve it. They may
Who's
want to have a special meeting.
aren't they the proponent?
They would be the proponent, yes.
Yes.
So they probably will need to have a quick meeting to approve that number.
Right.
Sean, when do you need to have the warrant? Or
So,
anyone who knows?
we are expecting to close on the warrant for the 28th.
Okay.
February,
Yes.
Okay.
So I
So-
will,
obviously.
Ed, I'll coordinate with the trustees to see if we can do a quick Zoom meeting to approve that. And just as a reminder to everyone, I am scheduled to meet with the Capital Expenditures Committee on Thursday night. It's too short notice to post a meeting for the trustees before then, but I will talk to them about that number pending approval by the library trustees.
Okay.
And you're all invited if you would like to come along and listen, participate. It's at 5:30 on Thursday on Zoom,
The 9th, right?
the 9th, yes.
Maureen, would you send me, you may have already done this, but can you resend a link to that?
Right.
I haven't gotten
Hasn't
it
come out yet. Okay, that's
so,
why it has.
Yeah,
When you do get it, please.
I'll send it to
I'll
the whole
get it.
committee.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And I guess there's no reason not to start drafting the warrant, work with the town manager or whoever to draft the warrant article so that we have something concrete for the trustees to approve. And once we do that, we're going to have to really get it in gear to come up with our presentation. So,
Mm.
okay. Is there any other business that needs to be taken care of with regards to those pricing proposals?
I'm just wondering out loud at a public meeting. Is the work on a presentation want to be done by a subcommittee with a non-quorum? And so that it can be more effectively gone forward and then reviewed here or something?
Good idea.
Just sort of like we did last time, I guess, or because Maureen went off and did it, which is fine too. But I can't see trying to work out a presentation with 9 people or however many
No, I
we have here,
agree.
a dozen.
Yeah, Maureen sent out a copy of the relevant law, and if you don't have a quorum, it's not a deliberation, apparently. And we're not going to be trying to decide anything. We're getting something ready. If you're experts on this and disagree, please jump in. But
Lee, is that correct?
I think so. Yep. If
Okay.
you don't have a quorum, you can discuss anything.
So it seems to me we can either form a committee, a subcommittee, or just sort of send it around hand to hand and then have a big review when we get done. Maureen, do you have a preference?
My
Go ahead, Pete.
recommendation is not to call it a subcommittee because that forms another public body.
Yeah,
that needs
that's
to
kind of what I was
follow
thinking
committee
too.
laws.
Good
So it's an informal gathering of a sub-quorum portion of this public body.
That's why I was feeling uncomfortable,
Right.
Pete.
Okay.
I knew there was something.
That
Yeah, this
eventually
point is
will
well
be-
taken.
That eventually will be reviewed in a public forum, so.
Before it's presented. So, okay. Maureen, why don't we just let you decide how you'd like to handle the mechanics of that? As usual, I'm more than happy to work on it.
Let me talk to Mary because she's not here and
Yep.
we'll get back to everyone about that.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you need a volunteer, I'm perfectly willing, and I have a lot of flexibility to sit down in your office with you and go over anything that you'd like to do.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the pricing proposals or the annual town meeting warrant article? Okay, I'm going down the. Go ahead.
Semi-related, I guess. Maureen, did you hear back from Mary about the possibility of that date for the AFC?
I don't recall hearing back from her
Okay.
about that,
It's okay.
but
Okay.
we were looking at the 27th, right?
Right.
February 27th.
Yes.
I'm gonna assume that's
Right.
okay.
We'll pencil it in.
Yeah. And again, you're all invited and welcome.
I'll be there.
Me too.
I will plan on it.
Will
Okay,
you send out a little
Yep.
reminder of that meeting and the time, please?
Yeah,
What,
sure will.
what time?
Our meetings start at 7, and I suspect this would be the only agenda item other than the approving of minutes or something.
any other building related?
Oh, I have one thing that we can put on a future agenda. Remember the mural that we have of the town that we hope will eventually reside in what was going to be our renovated building. Now it's not going to be. Ed Turner, is being very accommodating and taking care of that very large canvas. But I don't want to have it fall off the table that we're not paying attention. He may be thinking that we're going to have it, called into duty a year from now or something, but now it's completely on hold. And maybe there's another town building where it would be good to put it. But just don't want that to go off our agenda completely, but we don't need to deal with it right now.
Okay. We can put that, we should probably bring that up with the trustees as well. Let's, it's more building decoration than building structure.
Right.
So, okay. I have one thing. I listened to a state presentation on managing municipal meetings earlier today. It was mostly for the select board. It had some interesting information, but it had some stuff that applies to library committees about codes of conduct and handling public comment. So I just want to mention that here. I'm going to bring it up to the trustees and let them decide whether they want to do anything about it. But if they do, whatever they decide, I think will trickle back down to this committee. Anything else?
I have
So-
something somewhat related to that. You read Governor Baker's modified open meeting law things every meeting. Are you aware that that is going to stop, no longer be in effect at the end of March, and therefore all meetings in April and subsequent need to be held with an in-person quorum?
Yes, unless they
Yes.
extend that again or change it by legislation, that will end at the end of March.
One of the interesting things that all the select board members who were talking at this seminar said is they really they don't want that to happen. They want to keep being able to go hybrid or Zoom. So we shall
It's very
see.
convenient.
It's a lot more convenient. So.
Hybrid would still be allowed as long as there's a quorum present in the room.
Right.
It's always been allowed, so.
Okay. Any other business for the committee? Comments, questions, concerns?
When are we going to meet again?
I was just about to ask that.
I'm clairvoyant, or you've sent me the questions ahead of time today, Ed.
Either that or just great minds think alike. Troy. Maureen, when would you like us to meet again? I guess our usual meeting is going to
What
be
do
in a
you
couple
need?
of weeks at the end of the month.
Our next regular meeting would be the last Tuesday of February, which is February 28th. Does anybody think we need to meet sooner than that?
Well,
Uh,
that
Well,
would be,
that-
that would be right before the select board meeting and right after the AFC meeting. I suggest we try and meet maybe the week before that
So the 21st?
Yeah.
to see if we can review the presentation, because really it's not just a presentation for town meeting, starts with those two committees. Well, and capital expenditures, but
Right, but that's not going to be the town meeting presentation
I don't
necessarily.
think. Well, I think it'd be good if it was a close facsimile so we could get feedback and then maybe modify it. I think those are two good opportunities to get feedback on what we're presenting.
Yeah, and that would also give us time to work on it and get that ready in time for a meeting on the 21st. I think if
Right.
if I had to turn it around in a week, that would be difficult, but in 2 weeks we could get that done.
I go for the 21st.
Does that
Um,
work for everyone?
That's good for me.
It is, it's the vacation week, just in case anybody's still affected by schools. And maybe,
Not
maybe not
anymore.
me, but
Mary, maybe.
Mary, maybe, yeah. But that's okay. I think that's the right time
Yeah,
for me. yeah.
Okay. I'll post it for the 21st at 3:30 on Zoom.
One other thought, I want to throw this up as something to think about. We can discuss next time. Should we have a public meeting, a public forum, something like before the annual town meeting to discuss this? I'm in particular thinking we should get people who've shown a major interest in the library in that and get them, get their comments, if need be, do some education. And I see some nods.
I think
I
we
th-
should offer it, absolutely.
It also adds publicity to the fact that there's an article coming up, and you
Yep.
want the people who supported us last time certainly to show up and support this, and you want people who may be on the fence or not sure of it to be able to get some questions answered outside a town meeting where there's not much time.
And I think we need to make a specific invitation to the Congo Church folks. I have a feeling that of the 117 people that voted against us at the last meeting, I think that's the right number, a large proportion of them were the church people. And
I don't know if you should be
I think that might be an overstatement, yeah.
Well,
theories
well,
at a
I think,
public meeting.
okay, well, they were very concerned, so I want to make sure that they're included
That's the
in
good
our
part.
next set of informational meetings, because they're our closest big neighbor. And I don't
That's
mind
correct.
anything I say. I can be quoted and I won't feel badly about it at all.
My point is that to make that assumption is
Mhm.
not probably
Let's
fair.
not- It's not the committee's assumption. Let's be clear about that. It's an individual's assumption.
John, you have a comment?
Yeah, just quick, as far as, you talk about timing and coming up against another deadline, a warrant and that sort of thing. I think it's important when the project is being discussed now, it's the Westborough Public Library repair project, not
Yeah.
even renovation, repair.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, focus on the repair. This is a completely different project than the one that failed. Why
Yeah.
are they back here again? Well, they're back here again because you shut it down and we told you we'd be back because there's repairs that have to be done. So, I'd even stay away from the renovation piece right now. So this is repair. We're going to study, we're going to figure out what we need to do. And I think it's a good, that word renovation kind of straddles both. It straddles the old one because we were going to do some renovation, and it's the new one. But if you just call it, and I know it's semantics, but if you just call this the repair project, in my head, we're keeping the building that we have and doing
Yeah.
something to it. It
That's
just
a really
might help-
great point.
Just
I
might
agree.
help with the education.
I said,
Just,
talk about education. That's our committee 101. That nailed it
Yeah.
right there. The first piece of information we have is the repair. That was good.
I would even say that anything that you could look at and say, well, this is a renovation as opposed to repair, we're going to wind up in some of the alternates. So, Okay.
What the scope is, I think, is a little more immaterial. It's just in the,
yeah,
And,
or
you know,
they're-
in any of
currently
the-
they're listed in the low priority items, let's put it that way. lower
yeah, and
priority
any of
items.
the titles or any of the slides,
Yeah.
repair,
Yeah.
just drive that home. I think that will help differentiate, because, some people may go, no, I already said no in the library. What's this, a third time they're asking? It's like, no. We pushed the reset button. we're starting over, and this is a repair project.
Mhm.
Yep.
Sometimes repair can be sometimes more complex than,
Oh, just you wait and see.
Maureen, do we want to try and pick a time for that public meeting we were talking about, or a public forum, or do you want to wait until we're closer to ready for it?
I would say wait till we're a little bit closer. I'm picturing that like February, we're getting ready, we're presenting to the boards and committees that we need to. And March, when we turn the page to March, town meeting is on the horizon. I think that would be a more appropriate time.
Okay.
And town meeting's not till the 25th, so
Right.
there's
All right.
time.
Okay, good.
So we have like 3 full weeks plus a half a week in March
Yep.
to do a few of them. I'm not saying just one. I think the approach we did last time was great, having the session at the senior center during the day and doing the Willows and then doing some at the library, so that it's at a time when all different people are able to attend.
Okay. So what?
Can I?
Go ahead, Walter.
I also think on the subject of how to present this, I think it's important to present that we don't have all the answers to what we are going to do, that the point of this is to fund figuring out exactly what we're going to do so that we can then go to detailed design, because that's why we're going 3 times here. And unlike last time, you're not going to start with beautiful pictures of what it's going to be like. This is a repair. These are the items we have to repair, and this study allows us to figure out how we think they should be done and which items we think should be done and what should be done. And then we come back for the final design, which will get people to the quote. And I think that's an important part of the explanation, because it's a little different this time, because last time we kind of had the we're selling what we're trying to do, and here the trustees shouldn't be funding this out of their pocket to figure out what we should do. The town should. So
I will say that back in 2014, 15, 16, we didn't have beautiful pictures at that point. So, and that was when this project really kicked off. But anyway, so Maureen, can we put that public forum on the various agendas for the upcoming, for the trustee and LBC, just so they know it's coming? Any other comments?
Well, just what we're going to have, what is our agenda for each of the 3 town meetings?
All right.
Yeah. Maybe we don't have it today, but
I
we
did.
can
Whose
come soon,
action
maybe?
item was that? I don't even remember.
I think it
Probably
was
means it was.
John's. I think John said he'd put it together.
Oh, okay.
someone at the last meeting said they would pull something together. It might have been
I was
Ed.
going to make a rough draft, and he was going to make it technical. Okay, so I have followed down on that one.
Okay, that's all right. Just so we
feel
get
free to
it.
whack me. Just don't let me fall out again. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I will get that together for the next meeting.
Because I agree. I think that's another part of the presentation has to show the steps. Yeah.
Right. Good point.
Okay.
Well, that was
Anything
a
else?
lot. That was a lot.
Okay. Hearing nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second by Emery.
Okay. Maureen,
Amy, yes.
Bob,
Petroselli, yes.
Lee,
Emery, yes.
Pete,
And Beck, yes.
Walter,
Leslie, yes.
Al,
Gordon, yes.
Sean,
EO, yes.
Ed Baldwin, yes. Okay. Thank you all. Eric, thanks for taking the time to put that proposal together. And we will see you in 2 weeks.
Very good.
Bye.
Thanks.
Take care.